Various kinds of incentives are being used by water districts to encourage water conservation. What incentives would you recommend using with Improvement District Number 1 residential and agricultural customers other than higher rates? And now I'm going to hand you the microphone.
Thank you. I'll hold it away from my throat. First of all, I'd like to thank We Watch and the Times and the News and everybody here. Good question here from my perspective. I think Ynez customers have done real well on conservation in this time of drought, so I think that's terrific news. The numbers I've heard are down 24% and so on, so great conservation. However, incentives to conserve water are something that could be very effective, but ID1 has really done not enough to offer incentives or conservation assistance. Right now, the policy in place the policy is to lower the unit cost of water the more water that is consumed. For example, in rural residential rates are $4.80 for 100 cubic feet for the first 125 units, and then the price drops to $1.96 for amounts over this. And that's an incentive to use more water. This may work for profit businesses, but not for public services or for water conservation. We really need to reward people that conserve water as long as the minimum revenue to cover the costs and to cover money that needs to be put aside for needed capital investments for the future are achieved. Most other water districts are way ahead of ours. Galida's water district, for example, has an established set of conservation programs like smart landscape rebates, water saving incentives, free mulch, water efficiency rebates, and conservation consulting. So I recommend that we examine this range of conservation incentive programs and find out which ones are successful and implement those. Thank you.
Jeff, can you take the microphone? Jeff represents Division 2 now.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being here. Well, this might sound redundant, but I disagree with my opponent's answer over here. And let me say this to clarify the question. ID1 does not use water rates as a tool to promote water savings this way or that. Our water rates are set to meet the cost of providing water, and that's it, and that's only it. And I think that's a good thing. I'll tell you why. ID1 has put into play some of the things that were mentioned. Let me talk about those. Low flow toilet rebates, we absolutely have that. Free water saving devices. We'll give you free shower heads, nozzles. I don't know how many knew that, but they're there for sure. We'll do a property water efficiency analysis in collaboration with Kachuma Resources Conservation District. And for our ag users, there's only a couple things for ag you can really do to cut down your use. And basically that's training. And we offer irrigation training and research centers. Those are for our ag users, like I said. We now give monthly reports. I mean, if you go to the office at ID1, you'll find a stack of flyers or leaflets with all kinds of handy little stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. And I would suggest, you're going to hear this from me more than once, come to the board meetings, take part. We will help you, face-to-face interaction. I can't tell you how many people I've ran into the hardware store or the grocery store, and we talk about these things. But last of all, ID1, we're here to work with you, not penalize you with some high rates. And I got to tip my cap to you guys. I'll tell you why. The 5-year average since the governor put the 25% restriction, we've dropped by 30.7%. And that's you guys doing a heck of a job, good job. We're here to work with you, not penalize you.
Next is Anita Finfrog. Anita is running in Division 2 with SYCSD, correct?
Thanks all for coming tonight. Water conservation is supported by learning good habits, and I think it's really important for everybody to share the ideas that they have on how to conserve water. One of the things I would bring up would be the replacing old toilets. Even though that's been going on for a while, I'm sure there's people still have that. An old toilet in their house that uses a lot of water that's wasteful can also do the things like Jeff mentioned with getting the low flow shower heads, which are actually for free, Also, to another idea, and they do this down where I used to, when I lived in Southern California, was hand out rain barrels that you could set up for the winter time to collect rainwater off of your roof. I would like to also encourage people to do more drought-tolerant landscaping in their yards. And also with the agriculture ideas is getting people to use more targeted delivery systems in their irrigation, and also work on watering at times when they can maximize the amount of water that's delivered actually to the plants and reduce evaporation. Thank you.
I'd like to Brad Joes. Brad is our at-large.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys showing up. Wish we had this kind of turnout for our meetings, but this is good. You're here for a good purpose. Water is the lifeblood of our valley, and if we don't protect it, our valley will change. I can tell you that for certain. And later on tonight, I will discuss other points about impacts to our water. Now on to incentives. Trustee Clay mentioned what we're doing, and I think it's excellent. We've got the biggest impact you can have is landscaping. 50 to 70% of your water use goes towards landscaping. So to economize your landscaping, to make it more modernized drip systems, that's the way you're going to make a huge impact. And so, yes, incentives. We have the low flow toilet and the shower heads, but also just the irrigation training and research center classes we have for our agriculture users, because that's also a large use of water. But also, we can use it for our landscaping. There's places that have cash for lawn. I think Pismo Beach uses that to reduce everyone's lawn intake. I'd like to see us just really, I think the big impact would be on landscaping. If we can really get the proper control units on those, you will see the water consumption go down. Just one other note. Let's see my notes here. Oh, it's for our industrial. I know we have pretty light industrial happening, but maybe with our wineries also we can help them recycle and reuse their water. And I think that would save quite a bit. Thank you very much.
So our next speaker to the question will be Brian Schultz, who's challenging for District 3.
That's correct. Thank you. I can't disagree with anything that's been said so far, other than the fact that I would say that water rates are based on more than just your consumption. At the current point in time where I live in Solvang, my last water bill for water usage was $13, but I had a $75 meter charge. So what they've done is decided that there needs to be a steady source of income rather than be dependent upon the amount of water that people use throughout the year. Obviously, we use more water during the summertime than we would during the wintertime. So those costs have been spread out across the district in a different manner. So there's a lot more to it than just the amount of water that you use. In terms of what we can do to save water, there's lots of ideas that are out there. A lot of them have been said already. But my whole thing is you need to educate, you need to advocate, and you need to reward. And rewarding doesn't necessarily mean giving people back money or anything like that. It means that you can reward in other ways. I was part of another water district a couple years ago before we moved up here, and that water district simply set goals for their customers based on prior usage, and they also gave the amount that you should be reducing by. Now, I think the 30% that everybody saved here has probably been in a large part due to the price of water. I do think the price of water has an impact on what people do. Certainly in my neighborhood where I live in Solvang, there's a lot of landscape changes that are going on and have gone on for quite some time. In any case, obviously water frequencies and how often you water, what time of day, that's all part of this. But there's also technology like leak monitoring and things like that I was surprised did not exist up here. Section meters where you can determine how much water is going through a particular section and compare that to the bill usage and determine whether or not you have leaks that are going on in a particular section of Maine or whatever. But there are other items that can be done, so thank you.
Next we'll have Kevin Walsh, who's sits in Division 3, and Kevin says he's used to going last.
Yes, with a name like W, you
There you go.
get very used to that and more comfortable there. First, let me say some good things about our customers during this last drought. In 2015, we asked for a 10% voluntary reduction in water use. And we achieved a whopping 42%, almost half. Our people know how to conserve water when needed to conserve water, okay? And you've already heard about the 30% that we've saved over the 5 years. So this just wasn't a one-off year, it was long-term. Very impressive, awesome, I'd say. Our customers deserve all the credit and praise for that. For you all that live in Solvang, like Mr. Schultz here to my right, and he mentioned his Solvang water bill. Solvang is a totally independent water system. We don't send them a bill, we don't maintain their pipes, we don't operate their system or their treatment plants or anything like that. We only sell them a very small amount of water. It's an almost insignificant part of the bill for Solvang. Solvang is doing a wonderful job of water conservation, just fantastic. And if you're a Solvang resident, then you are eligible for the conservation programs that they provide. Also, agricultural use. My division is Solvang and the big ag users south of Mission Drive, or 246 if you prefer. So I got the city of Solvang and the ag users. So the big ag users, they are referred to the premier irrigation efficiency agency in this county, probably in several counties. That's the Kachuma Conservation and Kachuma Resource and Conservation District. They know about crops, they know about soils, they know about probes and monitors and water use, and some crops do better with less water and all those kind of things. So they're referred to there. I can tell you the farmers in our valley are very sophisticated because they compete in a global market, and so they have to be very careful with management of water as well as other resources because of the high cost.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to our second question.
Excuse me. Do I gather some of these are incumbents that are running for re-election? It
Yes.
would be nice to know who they are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second question is, do you think it is possible to assist with steelhead recovery in the San Ynez River? Why or why not? What are your views on ID number 1's involvement in funding projects for steelhead recovery in the San Ynez River? Start with Jeff Clay.
Yeah, again, let me just clear it up for some of you that might not be up on this. It's not really a matter whether it's possible or not. We're mandated by law to do this. U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, which owns Kachuma, the dam, and the outworkings, they must comply with an Endangered Species Act, an ESA. So it's about us working with what's already there. We don't really have a big choice in that matter. Now, to the degree, that's sort of the National Marine Fisheries Service, or NMFS, they do studies and really determine to what degree the steelhead are coming back or not coming back. And that's where us, ID1, that's where we come into it as far as really trying to achieve this balance of protecting our water supply and water supply rights, and also adhering to the ESA. Now, let me push that aside and let me just give you my take on it. We should be caretakers of God's creation. I absolutely believe that. I love animals. You guys would want to be my golden retriever, Buffington. We love animals. Every now and again, I'll say this. There's only so much water, and there might come a decision here or there where it's water for fish or water for people. And let me be transparent. 10 out of 10 times, I will pick water for people over water for fish. But here's what this board does and does well. We create an environment where it's not an either or, but it's a both and. So I think it is possible to comply with the ESA and supply water for all of us here in the valley.
as Jeff said, that the steelhead are on the endangered species list in this. It is required by law that we do protect them and try to get them off of that list. I do know that ID1 has a release of water, or I should say the Bradbury Dam releases water on a regular basis for the Hilton Creek area, and that is being right now focused on as a place for those steelhead trout to come and spawn. And as stewards of the earth, yes, we should all be taking care of them. And as they do better, then we can look at some other options. And I'm not a fisherman, so I don't know much more about them.
Red jokes.
Thank you. As Jeff Clay excuse me, mentioned, we have been doing work since 1993 on this. Okay, it's nothing new. And we're working closely with the Fish and Wildlife Service, Ynez, and the BOR, Bureau of Reclamation. They're the ones who manage the lake there. And in Hilton Creek is one of the places where we give money, expertise, and support for the spawning of the fish. But let me get really down to the facts here. The fish lost 89.6% of their water due to the dam to be transferred, never to return, over to South County to support the building and construction there. 89% of their habitat has been taken from them. Now, if you lost 89% of your habitat, you'd have a rough time surviving. That's where the emphasis needs to be made, and conserve water going that way. We need to get a better handle on how much water goes south, because that is water extraction. It doesn't come back. It's not like we get to use the water, we irrigate our land, and it goes back to the aquifer. This gets pumped over the ridge, never to return. So if we're going to get serious about saving these fish, we got to seriously look at the impacts that causes. And I've been taking a very active part on watching our water rights and our water since I've been on the board for 4 years. And this is one of the main emphasis areas, is protecting our water. And don't let anybody fool you. Without our water here, we disappear. Thank you.
Brian Schultz.
I agree. Water next to air is pretty much the #2 important thing, isn't it? So in any case, not a whole lot I can disagree with what has been said here. I do have to say that I agree with the stewardship. My wife and I were married here January 6th in this church by Father Stacy in 1996. And one of the things that I learned was that we needed to be good stewards of the earth and its resources. I also know that we have a prolonged drought and flood cycle that goes on here in Southern California, and this area isn't exempt from that. And besides having natural changes that occur within the environment that change water supplies and everything, you have man-made changes. And as was alluded to, the dam was put up here in order to provide water, and there's only a small portion of that water that actually comes back and is used here in the valley. So there may be a certain amount that actually gets into the aquifer from the dam, but still, this is an effort that was made by people long ago to be able to make sure that we had water for people during the summer months. And without it, this area would not be very inhabitable during the summer months, and we certainly wouldn't be able to be providing what we are for agriculture to people in the area. My opponents here and the board members, other board members, have had a long time to see and study these situations that are going on with regard to water. Obviously, that's not my area of expertise at the moment. My disagreements with what goes on in the district have more to do with the management of the district. The way it's being managed, the decisions that are being made by the manager, and supported by the board. And I think those are the areas that really need to come into focus. And no matter what the outcome of the election, it's important that everybody here, including the current board, knows and understands that there are concerns that are part of the community here that need to be addressed.
Kevin Wall.
Thank you. So, do we remember the question? Is it possible to assist with steelhead recovery? Definitely yes, that's the answer. ID1 continues to be an active participant in the funding of steelhead monitoring and projects as required by the regulatory agencies, as it has been for the past 25 years. ID1 has its own fisheries biologist staff that monitor for the health of steelhead in the river. ID1 was a leader in 2001 in developing the agreement between 11 different federal, state, and local agencies that plan to fund and construct projects for steelhead recovery. This recovery requires, obviously, the cooperation of all stakeholders on the river, not just a few. And it was the current ID1 manager, Chris Dahlstrom, and myself that were instrumental in bringing together these diverse and at times warring interests that resulted in the 2001 agreement that started the steelhead work that continues to this day. ID1 has in the past funded steelhead projects. Today it funds steelhead projects, and in the future it will still be funding steelhead recovery efforts.
We'll finish with Alan Anderson.
Sure.
Thank you. Not a lot to add. I think the steelhead issue is, the population's dropped to what amounts to 1% of what it used to be in our lifetime. So it's a dramatic issue. Recovery is the word in the question. I'm not sure that there's a plan in place for recovery. I think there is a plan in place for preventing extinction. And I think every effort should be made to prevent extinction. I think providing water to our community and preventing the steelhead trout from extinction is more than doable. I think that we should expect it, and I think the board needs to drive it. There's all kinds of solutions that different biologists, different research groups have developed, papers that have been written about solutions to ranging from major capital construction projects all the way to trucking to helicopter lifts of trout up to spawning grounds and so on. A lot of solutions that need to be put in front of the board, evaluated, and funded accordingly. I cannot imagine a life where we're trying to explain to our children how we have green fields, but we've allowed the steelhead trout to go extinct. The two are not mutually exclusive at all, and I think we should make every effort to make sure it does not go extinct.
We'll move on to question number 3. Many people in the Valley do not have much knowledge about ID number 1, its work and relationships to other agencies. Others have criticized customer communication and fiscal decisions. So the question is, how can, now I got to turn the page. How can the district more effectively inform customers about its work and involve them before making decisions? And we'll start with Anita Finfrost.
Well, the first thing I would do is increase and open up that communication with the public. Right now, the website is kind of hard to navigate, and there's not often things added into it, so that would be number 1. With people's monthly bills, that's another opportunity to send out information about what the current projects are for the board, what we're working on, and how people can get involved. The meetings could be set at a more convenient time. I look around, the comment was made about it would be nice to have as many people attend one of the board meetings. Well, yes, it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday. It's kind of difficult. So having them later in the day might make it easier for people to attend and get involved. Also having it streamed so people that cannot make it there in person could watch it from their home. And another possible thing is with the agenda items to be more clear on the agenda that's posted before the meeting, to make it clear which ones are discussion items and which ones are going to be action items, so people can get ready for those and attend. Thank you.
Judge, what do you have?
Yeah, on that, yeah, we do work with communicating with the public. We have periodic newsletters, the website as it is. We also have direct customer contact. I can personally say that every customer that's needed to talk to me, I've talked with them and discussed their issues. We do have open public monthly meetings. They're noticed in the newspapers. And there's community outreach to the service clubs. But I've also discussed with the board, and it's about providing a flyer to put into the monthly billings and to really hit on the key issues. And the key issues would be like Governor Brown's executive order for 55 gallons a day per person. This is the law. You know, there are things coming down, and those would impact you. I saw people's eyebrows raised. Well, it's coming, and yeah, we need to really get that information out to you people so you can brace for it or talk to your elected officials. We also are dealing with chromium-6. And that bullet has been bouncing around our office there for a couple years. The governor said you're going to do it, and then they said you're not going to do it. Well, it's cost us millions of dollars. Okay, so those are key things. And this new groundwater management, that's impacting us. It's going to impact people with wells. It's going to be monitoring. And of course, the state government wants to fine everybody if they don't follow the rules. And just real quickly about working with the other agencies, we work with Solvang. An example. One example is there was water stored that Solvang bought, and we also bought some up at San Luis Reservoir, and they stored it there. Well, our manager, Chris Dahlstrom, realized through the years, if you didn't pull that out, when North County, or Northern State got water, first water over the reservoir is our water that we bought to store there. Well, that was going to happen. Chris notified the city of Solvang, and they saved $142,000 in their water. We were able to work with them to bring the water down here and be used before it went over the spillway. Thank you.
As I alluded to in my last answer to the previous question, I think that my primary issue with the district has been lack of transparency. When we had an issue on my property and I went to the district, to the employees, it took me 6 months and I could not get an answer from the general manager. He refused to speak to me. He wasn't in the office. There were all kinds of issues. I ultimately had to go to the board and speak during the 3-minute public comment section. And then what happened after that was I got a letter from the board's attorney, in-house attorney, kind of a threatening letter and a bill. So that might have an impact on how many people want to go to the meetings. I think that so far as transparency goes, you need to stop requiring formal requests for basic public records that should be available through the website. To have to go through a formal request act to get information, and I as a public employee, I had to manage a large project where I had a citizens oversight committee, and that's basically what this board is a citizens oversight committee, making sure that your money is spent appropriately. And there are certain reporting requirements that go along with that. As was said here earlier, post the stuff, let it up, put it out there. There should be a quarterly financial status report. That's what I used to have to provide for what I used to do. You need to have more accurate and complete board packets and meetings with information on them. And like we said, you can live webcast meetings for transparency or record them and make them available on the website. I think we need to basically also have a forensic audit conducted, because I haven't been able to get any information about the questions we've asked about where the money is going. And you shouldn't have to do that. This is a public agency. You should not have to jump through these hoops. The newsletter is a great idea. I congratulate you on the concept, just not the timing.
Probably what I'll say most of you have already figured out, and that is what many water agencies have discovered along the way, and other kinds of government bodies, is that most customers really don't know much about them or how they operate at all. And as far as water goes, as long as the customer turns on the tap and the water comes out, and it's a reasonable cost, they really don't feel they have a compelling reason to be much involved. Now, beyond that, you've heard it said up here a lot of times, we like our customers to attend more of our meetings. That's true. We want as many people as possible to get involved. It is a democratic process after all. We have a board member every month. Agendas and materials are posted on the website. Our minutes of our meetings are far more detailed than you will find in most public agencies, where they record who made the motion, who made the second, and what the vote was. We give a detailed description of the discussion so someone can know why the decision went the way it did. Also, we have an email list. You can sign up to get electronic notifications of the agenda if you need to, and follow those that go along. And like most bureaucracies, a lot of decisions take a long time, months, sometimes years. These things track along with very little movement. It's like watching paint dry, quite honestly, but there's plenty of chances to intervene and get involved. You've heard it up here before by a couple of the candidates, and I'm just going to say it again. Come to the meeting. Come to the meeting.
Thank you. You know, as a challenger, you know, the challengers here agree that, you know, this is one of the bigger issues. This question is really the one that I think motivates most of us to run for the board. You know, we're not happy to watch, as Kevin says, paint dry. We're not happy with watching paint dry. I think it's really disappointing how little visibility the members of our community have in the vast expenditures, namely legal costs, that ID1 uses to manage relationships with other agencies and customers. That's something that if people were aware of it, you'd be shocked. That's something that should become more transparent. The relationships with other agencies and customers, from my perspective, are really toxic. We have an awful lot of people that, after I put my name in the hat to run for the position, people have called me and complained about the lack of transparency. The board does not provide the detail. They're not friendly. They don't answer the phones. They don't elevate things to board members and so on. So transparency is really the key requirement for this change. Detailed salary and expense information, as I mentioned, should be made available. Monthly board meetings should be made available in real time, as Anita and Brian both mentioned. There's no reason in the world not to tape and have the meeting filmed for anybody who can't make the meeting. And as Anita mentioned earlier, to have a 3 o'clock in the afternoon meeting, it makes no sense. People that are working can't make those meetings. 3 o'clock is ridiculous. That should be changed right away. And finally, customer satisfaction is critical. There is no measurement of customer satisfaction that's taking place. I would hire a survey company to provide statistically significant customer sat information directly back to the board and made available on the website so everybody can see how well the water district is performing to make you happy customers. Thank you.
Next is Jeff Clevin.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned customer satisfaction. Honestly, in this business, when you don't hear from your customers, you're doing a good job. As Kevin said, you want to go turn the tap on and have good, clean, quality water. And by the way, we're made aware of every single complaint that comes through that door, and there are relatively few. I guess what I'm hearing here, you'll hear some negative things said about our manager, the staff. We have the same number of connections and people as, let's say, Carpinteria, almost exactly. They have a staff of 27. We have a staff of 15 that does a fantastic job. I hear these people talk about dissatisfaction with this, the manager's not doing this. You have to be in the valley long enough to really figure out what's going on. No disrespect, but I've got underwear and socks at home that have been in this valley longer than these three that are challenging us. I understand what they're saying, but how can it be possible for them to have all this knowledge in such a short amount of time? I don't think it is. And I mean no disrespect, I'm just saying, come on, let's use our heads. I've been on the board for 8 years. We had board meetings at 6 at night. There weren't that many people attending. We cannot speak to public apathy. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. We go online, look at our board meeting minutes. I do this, and I'm on other boards. They are more detailed, highly detailed. There's every piece of information you would ever want on those meetings, guys. There really is. So, I don't know, I guess we just have to pay a little more attention, stay in the game, and attend a few more meetings. I think that'd be helpful.
Okay, our fourth question. In 2017, the Santa Barbara County Grand Jury issued a report recommending that additional water sources be developed in the county. What are your views on ID number 1 working with other water providers, cities, or the county to develop additional supplies? What additional sources are the most economically feasible? And of course, we're going to speak to the issues, right? No personal comments. Brad Jones, will you start?
Thank you. Okay, just to let you guys know, ID1 has a very diverse water source. Very diverse. Your water hasn't been turned off on you. During the drought, you have water. Okay? That's because our managers know how to find water and get it for us. We get water out of the Kachuma project. That's Lake Kachuma. But remember, 89% goes over the hill, people. Remember that. That's a big impact to us. Upland groundwater wells, we have those. We have river wells through the river. Our water rights are there. And we get water through state water project. We buy water, ship it down to the pipeline that we invested in to bring water to us. So we have those waters. And those are the most cost-effective waters that you can get anywhere. Okay, I've heard talked about desal plants and recycled water. Very expensive, and to drink toilet water, no, that's not for me. So, yeah. Santa Barbara's trying to get their desal plant up and running, but it's going to be really expensive. I mean, out of the world. And one other thing, we are under an onslaught of regulatory impacts. That's why we have attorneys who fight for our water. Now, my opponent does not know what he's talking about. That's where our money goes to protect our water. That is so important, and we do invest in protecting our water. Come and we'll show you all the different regulatories from the state, the federal, and local governments and agencies wanting our water and telling us how to use our water and what it will look like. That's what we use our attorneys for. Thank you very much.
Brian Schultz is next.
Thank you. I was just hoping to find out how much we actually spend on attorney's fees, but in any case, the question is, to go back to the question, it's, I think it's much better to have a seat at the table, at the decision-making table, than to stand outside over petty disagreements. And what I've seen in some of the papers recently is the fact that the agreement with COMB and the disagreement with them, the people on the other side of this issue, who are part of COMB, are just stunned by the reputation and the manner in which this extraction took place. And if you talk to the other districts, including Goleta, the water district where my opponent used to work, they will tell you that this district is particularly difficult to work with, that ID1 is particularly difficult to work with. The parent company will tell you that. So the bottom line is the population of California has increased by 20 million people, since the last major water project was completed. With the number of condos that I see as I go down the coast, down through Goleta, Santa Barbara, Ventura, it's apparent that the demand for water in Kachuma is going to rise on the south coast. As we've said and heard here, most of the water goes there. I think that there needs to be some kind of long-range planning solutions. And if it's desal for the people down on the beach to keep them from using more of the Kachuma water, and it's more expensive for them to do that, but they have this giant source of water to do that, then so be it, that's what they will have to do. I think that increased storage capacity and replenishing the aquifer are all aspects of what needs to be done. However, there's obviously some cost limits. I really think what needs to happen here also is that the board members need to have skin in the game. And when you live in a private water district area and you make decisions on this board that have no impact on you, that's problematic. So my whole situation is I was told I couldn't run. I own property in one district, I live in another, and yet I think you need to have skin in the game to make decisions.
Okay, reiterate, let's avoid personal comments and focus on the issues. Next, Kevin Walsh.
Right now, the Water District is working with the cities of Solvang, Santa Maria, Guadalupe in the far north of our county, Carpinteria Water District in the far south of our county, County of Santa Barbara and Central Coast Water Authority to obtain an additional 500 acre-feet of water supply from the State Water Project and an additional 300 acre-feet for the city of Solvang. This source is by far the least expensive of all the new water supplies that are available, far more less expensive than recycled water or desalinated water. I might mention that the easy water to get, maybe I should say the cheap easy water to get, has already been gone and gotten and arrived here. And so now we're having to look at the sources of water that were initially passed over the first time for additional supplies. The good news is that the supplemental state water that is available to us is there for the paying for, and that there would be no impact on our water rates for obtaining this additional supply.
So I think it's really clear that ID1 has interests that are real different from the rest of the South Coast water districts. And those have to be recognized. You know, we have rights to Kachuma water, and that's something that we do have to defend. The South Coast communities are looking for ways to bring in more water, and sometimes there is a risk of it being at our expense. So we have to defend our right to make local decisions, not give up the ability to make our own decisions for our own community and protect our water rights. However, ID1 really needs to make every effort to work together with those agencies to collaborate to mutual benefit. That doesn't mean give in, it means be at the table. As Brian indicated, I think it's critical that we sit around the table with them and we just don't throw attorneys at them every time they propose something that's outrageous or that it could invade our water rights. We need to talk with them, we need to keep those channels open. Additional supplies, I think we talked about a number of them. I think it's important to turn to conservation too and say there are other opportunities for water capture that could be explored. Certainly capture and then storage, water treatment, indirect support of desalination. I think desalination is very expensive, but there might be ways where we could trade off water rights for desalination investments in our neighbors. But at any rate, we do need to proactively make sure we're defending all of our resources. The last one is consulting and monitoring services. I think that the board and the agency could go out there, the district could go out there and be more proactive in providing consulting services and using sensors to monitor leaks, to alert people. That's a tremendous waste of water that people don't detect today. There's technology that will enable you to flag a leak immediately, and maybe a text message be received identifying that leak. So there's a lot of solutions there. Thank you.
Jeff Clay.
Thank you. Well, again, ID1 is way ahead of the game here as far as sources of water. As Brad mentioned, we have our Kachuma water, we have our river wells, we have our upland wells, and we have our state water. What that allows us to do, and by the way, that's more than a lot of agencies have. There's certain regulatory edicts that come down, made, for instance, Chrome 6. That eliminated some of our wells. We could supplement that with maybe our river wells and some state water. We can blend water. We're in a position, no matter what happens, we will take care of you. And believe me, that just didn't happen. That was the action of the board members up here. We are always having to stay one step ahead of the federal government, the state, and every other environmental entity that is there. And I just say this to say this. Talk about work with other agencies. Trustee Walsh and I are on the ad hoc committee with Solvang, two members of the city council. We are actively collaborating to combine our knowledge, skill, and resources for those of us on this side of the dam. Granted, the South Coast agencies have very different agendas and needs. We need to get together on this side. I'm talking Solvang, Buellton, even Lompoc, and San Ynez. This is what I'm actively pursuing. This is the future for water in the valley. And by the way, we get along wonderfully with these agencies. Again, I'm baffled how these people that have never attended a meeting with the other agency are so opinionated, but I'll let that go.
Let it go.
This is the main reason why I decided to run for the water board. I feel we really need to be proactive and develop water sources that are drought proof. One of the easiest ways to get water that's not coming from another part of the state is to focus on water recycling. We have waste water plants already. Upgrading them to be able to filter the water and make it into drinkable water is something that can be done. There's a cost, but the cost benefit over time is, you can't imagine how much money you would save over time rather than getting the money from Northern California. The water from Northern California is eventually going to start dwindling with the way the climate has been changing. The glaciers or the snow melt is happening faster, and that's going to affect how our water supply is brought to us. When you do recycled water, there's a couple ways to do it. The best way, I believe, would get it to 100% clean and get it right back into the system. You're not drinking toilet water, it's clean water. They say that the water that we drink today used to go through a dinosaur, so think about that. And then also, too, you can have different stages of the water. There's clean water that's clean enough for irrigation or non-potable uses, and that's another that can easily get to those customers. Another option is to focus on stormwater capture. A lot of the water that comes down from the sky in these bursts of rain that we're having just goes straight out to the ocean. There could be small either dams or swales along the river through the creeks where we could make that water percolate and sink down into the ground and replenish the groundwater. And then the last one is desalination. Desalination plants are going up all over the place. The cost is coming down as those happen. The technology is getting better. So I think it's something to look forward in the future. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank all of you for your informative answers to these tough questions. We're going to take just a few minutes to kind of recycle our candidates. So you guys are going in the audience. Don't run off. Okay. So our first question, and we'll start with you, David Beard, okay? In fact, I'll come over here so you can have the microphone. Valley residents have criticized SYCSD for failing to be transparent, particularly in its handling of boundaries, expansion, and rate and employee salary decisions. Here's the question: how can the district more effectively inform constituents about its work and involve them before making decisions?
Hello, and thank you for coming tonight. This is one of the main reasons why I am running for the CSD. My neighborhood was annexed in with very little notification. Transparency is the biggest issue with this organization right now. You ask them a question, you never get an answer. At the meetings, we were told that they were not looking into a treatment plant. We have final plans for them that they've spent the money on. Transparency is the biggest issue, and that's one of the main reasons why I've run for this organization, running for this seat.
Robert, can you address the questions?
Okay, I have a little knowledge of this, a little perspective, in that they tried to annex us in the mid-1990s. So I have something to compare it to, a perspective from two sides, if you will. We got a letter from LAFCO, it's right here, that stated, you're being annexed for sewers. That's the first notification we got, okay? This is Sandy and Ynez. We all know each other. We live within 5-10 minutes of each other if you walk. We're all neighbors. We don't see each other, talk to each other. We know each other by facial expression. It's a very informal place, and that's one of the reasons we're here. I went to the manager when I got that letter, Mr. Hodge, and I said, what's this about? Oh no, that shouldn't have gone out, that shouldn't have gone out. I'll take care of it, I'll take care of it. I never met Mr. Hodge before, and the fact of the matter is, I took him at his word. I trust everyone until you give me reason not to. A week later, he puts out a letter stating you're not going to have to hook up. He didn't answer the question. He justified it. He tried to massage what he did. Okay? They had a meeting. At that meeting, I was the first to speak. I asked these two senior gentlemen to pull this back. You need to educate. You need to define the problem. You need to request input and get community support. I asked them to pull it back, and this is what they did. They refused to answer questions. They said, we'll answer all the questions at the end. They took out of maybe 25 questions, they answered 3 or 4. They're evasive, they're arrogant, and they have a terrible attitude when they interface with the public. That's a real moral crime in my book. Thank you.
I'll reiterate that's a personal comment. Try to keep constructive comments about the issue.
Thank you all for coming. The board of SYCSD, after this happened, formed a public outreach committee to explore solutions to this problem. The committee's suggestions were to advertise in local newspapers, on the local radio stations, in addition to the mandated posting on the district website and the district office. The CSDA, the California Special Districts Association, has a program that was created to promote transparency in operations and governance of special districts in the public, and to show special districts and to provide special districts with an opportunity to showcase their efforts in transparency. These programs are the result of the California Government Code. We have no choice. These are things we have to do. We have to comply with the Brown Act. We have to comply with the public records request, with the disbursements or the refunds of monies for our people when they go to class. We have to have actually, we'll just leave it at that. There are a half a dozen things that we have to do to comply with the government code. We do that, and because we do comply with all the requirements set forth by the California District Association, we have actually been awarded a certificate of excellence for our transparency. I know it's, in fact, we just got it today. It was awarded to our general manager at a conference that he's been attending. Thank you.
Next, let Seymour address the question.
Thank you. The one thing I'd like to say is that when this happened, and what they're saying is true, they did get a letter from LAFCO before our letter. And we were in the process of creating our letter. We had no communication with LAFCO, and we've said this before, we didn't know their letter was coming. So it caught us off guard. Do we annex every day, large areas? No. This is the first time that this board has ever annexed a large amount. We're usually used to one person coming and saying, hey, I'm in dire need and I need to be annexed because I need to get I'd rather be on sewers than septic system. So it kind of blindsided us, but we learned from it. I realized that we needed to be, I agree, more proactive. We needed to get more information out sooner. And so with that, I feel that as I said, we learned a lot from that situation, and he's right. We did, get a certificate because since then we've been more proactive. We've been more transparent. There was a committee that we also had in-house with 2 of the board members, and we've tried to follow a lot of what they've recommended. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to our next question, which is, how can the district minimize rate increases while ensuring sufficient revenues to meet the district's costs? We'll start with Robert.
Well, thank you. This current board has alienated the people they work with. Solvang, I'll say for one. Solvang handles the affluent. Solvang is our business partner. They have again, I have to refer to the word attitude or an arrogance. They don't want to work with Solvang. I was having lunch one day with a friend of mine who's here this evening, and we talked to one of the board members here tonight and asked him, where are you going to put the affluent? And the comment was, Solvang's going to take it. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this. When Solvang heard about that, Solvang says, we don't know anything about it, folks. We're not taking anything. Again, they put the horse before the cart. Okay, that's costly. That's poor planning. That's very unprofessional. Okay? It just doesn't work like that in the real world. Solvang and the community service districts now have their own ideas of what, instead of working together, it's basically each man for himself. These are business partners. These are our neighbors. They're in the same business. There should be no abrasion there. But everything this board has done has been abrasive to the community. There's one board member, by the way, who is the only female there, who is belittled at times, spoken over. I talked to a city council person this week from Solvang, and I asked them, how is it going over there? She said, Bob, I went to one meeting, and they demeaned her so bad, I left there with a tear in my eye. That's a pretty bold statement. That says a lot about the community service district's attitude, arrogance, and current board. It's, like I said, it's unprofessional. The fact that they are doing what they're doing is costly. Solvang should, in fact, be the leader on this, and we need to apologize to them. Thank you.
Let's address the question. Maybe this is next. That is, how can the district minimize rate increases while ensuring sufficient revenues to meet the costs?
Thank you for that. Saying as Community Services District, the way we go about rate increases is if one is necessary, we advertise for an RFP or a request for proposal. That is sent out through trade journals and firms that specialize in doing rate studies. They're asked to send the district their proposal about what they, how they do the rate study, and that rate study is based on the size of the district, the projected income and expenses of the district, and it's usually for 10 to 12 years. For the past 10 years, the annual increase has been 3.75%. The reason we've been able to keep it at that figure is we constantly monitor the budget, we constantly monitor where the money is spent, and we are always looking for ways to save money. I think that going 10 years and having the increase not go over 3 3/4% is, considering how expensive things have gotten, I think we've done a good job. Thank you.
David Seymour, will you answer the question?
Yes, sir. I think the other David did a good job with explaining that. I'll give you a little more details. If you are in SYCSD and you are on our sewer district, the average house pays $28 a month. At 3.35 or 3.75%, it means that it will go up $1.06 per month. You know, and over that year would be 12 months. And we don't pay, they don't have to pay monthly, but all our fees are taken out on the taxes. And it's interesting that we found that every time we announce that we're gonna review fees, no one comes to the meetings. And it's a little like ID1. So if no one's coming to the meetings, they must not be that upset. I think $1 and something a month, about $1.06 a month raise every year for 12 years is pretty extraordinary. I don't know what else I can add to that, so thank you.
So how you would reduce costs would be still partnering with Solvang. I've talked to several people at Solvang, and they basically said they've had no communication on expansion with the current board, or until the recent future they haven't. Building a treatment plant is very expensive. 30, $80 million. I believe Wasso's was $100 million to build a plant for them. I think continuing to partner with Solvang and working for them, we're already currently responsible for 20% of the capacity, and we would be responsible for 20% of their expansion also in our current contract.
So our next question is, the district currently contracts with Solvang for wastewater treatment services. Both recently completed wastewater treatment studies. What conclusions do you draw from the two studies about wastewater treatment solutions for San Ynez area and Solvang? We'll start with David Higgins.
Thank you for that. The first thing I will say is that actually, if the studies have not been completed, Solvang has not finalized their study because Solvang staff is doing further research into their options. All their options require an upgrade to the existing plant, and SYCSD has a 20% share in the plant. So we will pay 20% of all costs associated with that plant. We have been, in fact, last month we met with Solvang. We have a joint wastewater committee, 2 members of their board and 2 members on our board. Those members happen to be the 2 Davids sitting up here. And we came to we actually put forward an idea to go with a membrane plant, which is a state-of-the-art plant. It is the most expensive, but the quality of the water that comes off that plant is just as good as the water that goes into your homes. Now, we're not talking about plumbing this stuff into your house. We're talking that could be used for agriculture, or can be re-injected into the ground, into the aquifer, upstream of the river wells, and you're going to have a continual flow of water back into the aquifer, which will help with our water, like I say, or it could be pulled up for agricultural use.
I like David, I found that to be a difficult question because of what happened with Solvang. Our study actually is finished. We had a study, we had 3 options, but we can't really finish anything until Solvang finishes theirs and lets us know how much it's going to cost for the plant, because our rates are based on what they charge us. If this plant upgrade costs a lot of money, then of course our rates will go up. So that's where we are on that. And it's the short answer to this question. There again, Dave spoke before me.
Beer.
I think I basically answered the question on the last one. As their study, that's part of the study that they did. They spent $175,000 on the study, and they were all in, where they were planning on putting them were all in floodplains. So I believe you can't build a wastewater treatment plant in a floodplain. It doesn't make sense. I think it was a waste of $175,000 of our money to do a study and have a plan done for a wastewater treatment plant in a floodplain. That's all I have to say.
Robert, Ian, will you answer the question?
There should have been no 2 studies. That's spending twice as much as you have to. The interface with Solvang should have been very professional and beneficiary to both. Solvang and the district should have paid for 1 study. They should work as a team, not against each other. It's real simple. You want to build a sewer plant? If it's needed, let Solvang take the lead on it. Let us support that. And if it costs us a lot of money, it's still going to be substantially less to buy property, pay property taxes on that property. 5 to 8 years, I was told, is the permitting process for a plant as complex as a sewer plant. You have a lot of money being expended before you have any money coming in. The board should look at that, but they don't. They kind of shoot from the hip. I think we should apologize to Solvang, put it on the table, and go forward from there. They're the real pros when it comes to handling the effluent. And we are, in essence, their customers. I think it needs to change. And this changes with the attitude of the board. Because, like I said before, it's an arrogance there. It's almost a culture there. They make you feel very uncomfortable when you go there. They don't listen to you. There's terrible body language. That's why people don't go. Between the 2 of them, I believe these 2 senior incumbents, I believe you've been there cumulatively over 20 years. Not once, that's 250, 300 meetings, not once have they had a brainstorm to put out a flyer, a quarterly report, a semi-annual report, notify us of what's going on. I've never got one, and I've talked to people who lived in the district before we were annexed. They've never got one. Where's the transparency? Who gave you an award for not contacting your constituents? Come on, that's a joke, folks. Thank you.
Okay. On question number 4. The answer is no, because it is the most expensive option.
What is the question?
The question was, oh, you didn't?
What is
So, our 4th question, which you've all been answering. But you get answered
Part of it.
directly.
Part of it.
And you'll answer the question directly, no personal comments, right?
We will.
Let's do that. So, do you think the district should develop its own wastewater treatment facilities? Why or why not? We'll start with David Seymour.
Oh.
The answer is no.
Would you care to elaborate?
I will. The answer is no at this time. The reason is that because of what happens with Solvang and because of their need to improve their plant, we don't know how much to improve their plant is going to cost. That being said, it might be that if we created our own plant, and I foresee a reuse plant, that we would be better off. Here's the reason why. Every bill we get from Solvang in our contract, we have to pay. We can pay in protest if we don't like it, but we have to pay. We have no say in the contract. And it's been that way since it was formulated. We have had our attorney write and try and help improve our contract. And we were told no by their attorney. And it's been that way. I've been on the board 14 years. And I've been president 3 times. And I've been part of paying the bill and protesting. But you can only protest. Nothing that has ever happened. So maybe if we had our own local control, even though it's the most expensive way to go, we would have control and be in better condition that way.
So, it's a possibility.
David Beard.
Yes, I believe we should not do our own plan. I believe that we can do a better job working as a partnership with them and maybe renegotiate our contract during the expansion. People that I've talked to at Solvang are very willing to talk to us or talk to the community service district, but I believe they haven't really been reached out. No one's reached out to them except for the last couple months. So my thing is no, I don't think we need to build a plan.
Marvin Gamble, we got you the question. Should we build a plan?
The logic that's been demonstrated tonight on supporting the building another plant is like saying it's more expensive to put a room addition on than completely build a brand new house. It's just foolish, and if you can add, or if you can't, you get a calculator. There's no possible way building a new plant can be cheaper than working with Solvang. Plain and simple. Solvang, for some reason, needs to be approached in a professional, fair, and attitude, and get rid of the mistrust that goes there. The community service district came here, I guess, 6 months ago and tried to swallow up Los Olivos in their district, in their sphere of influence. They did get a meeting here, right in this room, but when the final vote was tallied, I believe it was plus or minus 75% wanted nothing to do with the district because of the way the district deals with people and entities. That's a culture, that's got to change. Otherwise, it's going to be real expensive. You can justify anything in life, but the fact of the matter is, Solvang is not the bad guy. They're going to provide us a service and we're going to pay for it. What is wrong with that? We pay for everything. And the vendors I work with every day don't have a problem. They're not the enemy. They're not the bad guy. They're not the competition. It's a big team here. That's part of being in the small community. Everybody helps everybody. That attitude is prevalent throughout the community, but it doesn't exist at the community service district. And you gotta change that. Nobody that I know of has a very positive response to how the community service district is run. With that, I say thank you.
My answer is no, and that's because it is the most expensive option. We are, like I say, Solvang is putting together their study. We'll find out what the option that they decide to go with is. We've already committed to going with Solvang. But you need to know that when Solvang runs the plant, we, the citizens of San Ynez, have absolutely no say-so in how that plant is run, maintained, or any work that's done on it. And being that, we do own a 20% share in it, we will put 20% of the bill for the engineering study, for the construction, for the maintenance, for the operation. If the citizens of San Ynez, if that is okay with them, that is the way it's going to be. Like Director Seymour, David Seymour said earlier, yes, they do send us a bill every month, $18,000, and we pay it. And it's nothing that can be negotiated. You give them the money. If we have questions about the bill, pay the bill and then submit your questions, and we'll talk about it. Sometimes we get a little reduction, sometimes we don't, but at least they now do come up, and we are talking about it. Relations over the past 3 or 4 months have got much better because we're all finally going in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your informative answers. We're going to take a 15-minute break now. So our first question is going to be an ID1 question. What is your position on regulation of groundwater use for agriculture? And I'm going to do something to Kevin Walsh, never happened before. He's going to go first. Can you handle that?
I punt. Groundwater regulation for agriculture is written into the state law now. There's no reason to be for it or against it anymore. It's a reality. The San Ynez River Water Conservation District, not ID1 on the end of it, what we call the parent district, is the groundwater agency for this area. That district has decided to divide up the river into 3 sections, eastern, central, and western. We are in the eastern area. I am on the Sustainable Groundwater Agency Committee for this area. And yes, it does include ag and urban, and if there was industrial or whatever, it would include all of that. So there is going to have to be stakeholder participation by all groundwater users. There may be some de minimis for very small users that don't pump much water, but basically everyone that's in that, got a straw in that groundwater is going to have to be a part of that agency. I think we're fortunate in that our groundwater basin is not overdrafted. Or not critically overdrafted. There's a critical basin in the designation, and we're in a more moderate case. So hopefully we don't have to be dividing up an ever-decreasing slice of pie to spread between more and more users. So that's unfolding. It's brand new. There's deadlines that occur in 2020 and 2025. So this isn't something in the future that will be doing.
I think in my time in working in government, I understood that the bureaucracies of government tend to expand and expand their scope and their reach, and I think that that's what's happening as Kevin has mentioned here, is that the State Water Resources Control Board is the vehicle through which they're trying to exert ownership over all groundwater in the state of California. And I think that the district has a vested interest in having a seat at the table and making sure that the interests of this area are well taken care of, and that we aren't pumping more groundwater out of the area and shipping it farther south or to other areas. So far as the use of groundwater for agriculture, I think it's probably one of the reasons why I want to be here is because of the agriculture. It's one of the reasons that my parents moved up here years ago. The place is beautiful. It's just gotten better with all the wineries and everything. And the use of groundwater for agriculture is just a simple fact of life here. And a lot of that water returns to the aquifer. So at least in my understanding, as long as we continue to be judicious in the way that we use our resources here, we should be able to have it for a long time to come. As Kevin said, the aquifer has been assessed as being in fairly good shape.
Hey, Joseph, you address the question.
Yeah, my opinion there with that, we're all in it together. We got to work together, agriculture and commercial and residential. It's something that the state has put down as part of this regulatory onslaught that I've been talking about that's coming. And this is what we've got to manage and be proactive with this. It's what it is, and that's it.
Anita Finifo.
I'm happy to hear that the groundwater is something that is important to the whole state. There are places in the San Joaquin Valley that the ground has dropped 14 feet because of overpumping of the groundwater. It's very important to make sure that is replenished. It can be replenished through the recycling of water and getting it back down there, fill the aquifer. And agriculture, yes, they depend on the water too, and we depend on the agriculture so we can eat. So it's very important to all work together.
Chef Clay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much more there is to say on this. I absolutely think using groundwater for ag is it's reliable. It's a good source of water. I guess my only comment would be on the regulation versus over-regulation. And this is where my eyes are open to where the state is going with this. To me, it's sort of like Big Brother inviting himself into your living room in a certain way. I do agree we can't overpump, but again, this is all new, by the way. This is all very, very new. So ID1 and the other agencies, it's really on us to watch and make sure, number one, we have a seat at the table, and number two, our voice is heard.
Not a lot to add here. Could I defer and get my 2 minutes later on? No, just agreeing with what everybody said. Agriculture is one of the reasons why I moved here, and it's part of the valley, and it will continue to be, and that's got to be a priority for ID1. Participation in invasions by regulatory agencies is a fact of life, and I think we need to participate, have a seat at the table, engage them head on, and defend our rights. And I think that's what the plan is, and that's what I would do too.
Okay, our next question is one for the folks that are running for the Community Service District. Oops, wrong one. Santa Ynez is a small rural community. I like my septic system. Why would you not first survey Santa Ynez Valley residents regarding their desire for a sewer system, especially when ID number 1 stated there was no problem with effluents getting into groundwater? We'll start with David Seymour and give David Beard the last word.
Could you repeat the question, please?
I will.
Yes.
Okay.
Santa Ynez is a small rural community. I like my septic system. Why would you not first survey Santa Ynez Valley residents regarding their desire for a sewer system, especially when the Water District stated there was no problem with effluents getting into groundwater?
That's a tough one.
residents.
Yes, I realize that, and I'm not, I'm probably not gonna give a good answer because it's really kind of stumped me. In the past,
Regional board.
I'm gonna have to pass.
Could I have this time?
Go ahead and read the question again, please.
Okay, so I'm not going to read all of it.
Okay, just,
So why would you not first survey San Ynez Valley residents regarding their desire for a sewer system?
good enough, thank you. In the mid-1970s, the area along Calzada Street in San Ynez was experiencing failed septic systems, and effluent was in the creek. At that time, the county of Santa Barbara put a building moratorium on the town side of San Ynez, and the only way to get that lifted was to put in a sewer system. That system went into effect in 1978. I can tell you now, here in 2018, there is still a half a dozen residents within the town side of San Ynez who have a fully functioning septic system and are not on sewer, nor have they ever been asked to go on sewer. All the sewer district provides is an option to you, a service to you. If you have a problem with your septic system, if it fails, at least there's a pipe in the ground in front of your property that you can hook to. No one from our district is ever going to tell you that you have to hook up to it. If you've been told that, that is not true. The only agency in the county that can make you go on sewer is County Environmental Health. And they do it strictly to protect groundwater because that's where we get our drinking from. Thank you.
Robert DeAmber, let me answer your question.
I believe that we should, and I presented this to the board previously, a septic system is a living thing all on its own. It creates enzymes, it breaks down solids, and there's a whole living process that goes with a functioning septic system. People come up here from Los Angeles, throw things from eggshells, cigarette butts, sanitary napkins, all kinds of things that don't belong in there, expecting it to be functional. And pretty soon it gets sick and it rejects that. I suggested early on that we educate the community. Real simple, a little flyer that shows that you're interested in what's going on in the community, that you're considering their well-being, they're getting an education, and it makes you look good because you're providing a service for them. They say, boy, I got a letter from the community services. This is neat to know. And of course, you don't have to listen to it, you don't want to. But it's an outreach that should have been done a long time ago. I suggested it and it was just water under the bridge. It's nice to have the option. Yeah, I would concur with that. I don't think anyone would argue that. But some of the ways that it's been approached to build a baseball stadium before we find out we had a baseball team to play there. There's been no survey recently. And again, it just adds on to a simple situation becoming more and more complex. And it needn't be that way. It needs some new leadership, some new guidance. It needs some sunshine in there is what it needs. And right now we don't have that. It's the same old song being played over and over again. Thank you.
Beer.
I think basically the question was, why wouldn't you? Well, they didn't. They don't go to the community and ask them what they want or what they need. They tell you, and that's wrong. When we were annexed in, we asked them, before we were annexed in, we asked them to stop, take a step back, talk to the community. They absolutely refused. They would not do a thing to answer our questions. They said it was, our nitrates were high. I live in Skyline Park. Our nitrates have actually dropped. I'm on the water board there. I help manage the water system. Our nitrates in our neighborhood dropped in the last 2 years. And we were annexed in under the auspices that our nitrates were going up. So, you know, I think they need 100% transparency to this community.
I have a final question for each group, and it's going to be very similar, okay? So we'll start with ID number 1. What is your expectation of current ID number 1 staff? It's a non-controversial question, right? And then we'll ask the same question for the SYCSD. Well, not about ID number 1 staff, about your own staff. Okay. So we're going to start with Alan Anderson.
So with
I let the bell toll first.
I don't think there's anything to be.
Clock's not starting, is it?
Boom, the bell.
Great, now that I've thought it through. So the question is the staff. What comment on the current staff, and what would I do?
What is your expectation of the current?
Expectation. So the expectation as a board member of the staff would be that water, number 1, continue to be provided to everybody the way it is being provided today. You turn on the faucet and there is water running, and I think that's terrific. The team has done a great job of that. What I would also, though, expect in terms of change is I would expect more transparency. I would expect some of the things we've talked about. I think access to the board is critical. I think measuring customer satisfaction is something that's not happening and could. I would also expect transparency in terms of the legal expenses that are being incurred by ID1. I think they're excessive. When a customer has a problem, what I've seen lately is the first thing that ID1 does is arm itself to the teeth with lawyers, and that's expensive. It's expensive for the community, and I don't think it's necessary. And the other thing I would expect from the staff is I would expect the staff to develop a more proactive, open-minded attitude toward dealing with the opposing or other water districts, whether it be the state, Goleta, Montecito, Santa Barbara, and so on. And I expect them to sit at the table and have constructive conversations, always defending our rights and our water rights, always keeping that in mind.
Jeff Clay, will you answer the question?
Thank you. My expectation of the staff is to be a conduit of information to the board. The board is the decision-making body. The staff collects information, assimilates it, and delivers it to the board. Quite honestly, as I mentioned in one of my earlier answers, we're doing that with 15 staff members now. When an agency our size on the other side of the pass has 27 to 28. So our staff is really doing a good job. Now, am I saying carte blanche, there's not room for improvement? Certainly there is. And I think Mr. Anderson had a couple good comments we talked about, but honestly, our staff is performing extremely well. As a board member, and this is 8 years of experience, I have never been in a situation where I've been lacking one piece of information to make a critical decision. So as far as improvements, very, very small. My expectations are being met quite nicely.
In regard to the staff, I'd like to see more open customer service, proactive, engagement with the public, and also more transparency, as we spoke about earlier, regarding the website and the availability of some of the records and agenda minutes from the meetings. That's it.
And Joseph.
Yeah, I've had the privilege to work with an excellent staff. These people are so knowledgeable, it just dumbfounds me. Water is complex, and it's legal issues that drives it. I came in super naive to this board. It is all about legal, keeping our water rights, and that's why you keep hearing me harp on that. We got Harlan right there. He was here before I think Dust was here. He knows everything. He's just a world of knowledge. His son was raised here. He's on the board. He's excellent. He brings that local knowledge. Kevin, oh my gosh, we are so blessed to have Kevin Walsh on the board. He worked for GLEDA. He knows the ins and outs. He knows why they're coming to get our water. He keeps us super informed. So for the staff, they're doing excellent. I want them to be courteous. I want them to be respectful to the customers, be accountable to the customers. And I can tell you this, we are the leaders in the state, and that's why everybody watches ID1, this little bitty water district. We got people who know what's going on out there. Thank you.
Ryan Shaw.
Thank you. My expectation of staff is primarily customer service excellence, and I think there's a lot of room to improve in that area. It's nothing about the staff in and of themselves. It's about the policies that they're forced to follow and policies that were implemented just recently. I think that for the suggestion to be made that the staff is fully informing everyone on the board, that simply was not my experience. It took me 6 months trying to penetrate staff before I went to a board meeting and actually spoke to the board using the 3-minute time period that's allotted for public comment. That's not a good process. If you are a customer and you aren't able to penetrate up to the general manager level because you haven't had any satisfaction down below, and you have to go to the board, and the board hasn't even been advised about what's going on, that's a problem. Transparency is part of the issue, and it's been mentioned many times here, and it's my experience that the board simply doesn't understand what's going on with the lack of transparency at the level of the employees. There's a difference. I have not interacted with anybody really from the field in any meaningful manner. All my interactions have been with staff in the office. They're nice people, but I think they're following procedures that are just too aggressive. And when you talk about that, I spoke to or read some comments from one woman who talked about the billing process. And she talked about how the agency acts like a very aggressive collection agency, and that she had to put down the wrong amount on a bill, on a check that she submitted, and she's $14 short, and she got a shut-off notice for $1.44 that she owed from a prior bill. This is not the kind of communication and staff excellence that I would expect. So it's just not okay. So that's the way staff should be functioning, and the board should be overseeing those policies to make sure that those types of things do not happen.
Close on this question, Kevin Walsh.
Wow. Ladies, and 4 of you are here tonight. I didn't ask you to come. I don't think Jeff asked you to come. Brad, you didn't ask them to come. You're on your own. Some of them are single women with children. You deserve an apology, and I'm giving it to you now. You ladies are awesome. I have the experience of many, many years in public agencies since age 17. Most of those in the PERS, the same retirement system you are. I know what staff does. I know what you ladies do. I know what you put up with. You shouldn't have had to come here and be upbraided for the fantastic, excellent job you're doing. I have managed these kind of women and men in the field, and I hope you report this back because I know we got a family going there between all of us. And I hope you report back to the men because I feel the same way about them. You are the best I have ever worked with. And I have worked with some good people. half of Goleta is still there. Go down and ask what they think of their staff. They think they're wonderful. You guys have got it all over them, hands down. I'm really upset these comments were made tonight about you personally, and were attacks on you, and I totally disagree, and I think the three of you that are challengers owe these four women personal apologies. Thank you.
David Beard.
When I clap at the end of this, as you all do, it will be for these four women.
David, it's going to be the same question. What are your expectations for staff for the community service?
My expectation of the staff of the community service district is that the board is the ruling body and the staff should follow. Also, I don't have a problem with the way the staff, other than the manager, has run the organization. From what I've seen, they do a good job, other than the manager actually not answering questions. You go in there and you ask a question, and he either won't speak to you, or he says, I'll get back to you, and never gets back to you. You send an email, you never get a response back from the manager. I think most of that comes from the board, the current board not directing him to answer the questions, or to basically they're hiding something is the way they're acting, is the way I feel. And that's one reason why I'm running for this to have a board spot on this organization.
Robert Gamry, what are your expectations of the current community service district staff?
I would incentivize the troops down in the trenches, if you will. You're only as good, any business, any entity is only as good as the employees who make it or break it. The people who are out there every day doing the hard work are the ones who really know how the system operates. They can make you or break you. They can see things that need to be changed, or they can look the other way. But if you incentivize them, you make them proud to be a partner and not an employee, and you offer them those incentives, they're going to look a little harder, they're going to work a little harder, they're going to contribute a little more because they're part of the family, if you will. And if you offer them financial incentive, well, that's great, because if they're doing something that can save you thousands of dollars on a small task and future, savings, I have no problem with offering them a reward, incentivize them. That saves the community district money. It makes the employees want to be a little more contributory in their efforts and what they see. Everybody wins there. So I think that would work very well. I've worked for the federal government, and I used to get $25, $100 sometimes because I put in suggestions that they implement. Back then it was $25, got you a couple tanks of gas. But in any event, I would want my employees to want to be a part of the family. And I think by incentivizing them and giving them a package that they're proud of will generate a great deal of return in their loyalty and in savings that they can create by just observing or making recommendations on things that people in the offices never see or aren't even aware of. That's what I would do. Thank you.
Yes, SYCSD has a staff of 6, including the general manager, who is also a certified California wastewater treatment plant operator and a water treatment plant operator. The system that was put in Ynez was put in 1978. We were told at that time it was a 20-year system. We are now over 40, and you can thank your staff at the sewer district, the guys that are in the field. They are on top of it all the time. Maintenance is a very big thing. As soon as a problem is found out about, it's addressed immediately. the lines are kept clean, they TV the lines, they work very hard. As far as their pay goes, that has to be done through it's actually a survey that's done of like-size sewer districts. And by that I mean population served, miles of pipe in the ground, the economics of the area. They do a survey of areas like that, and they come up with a medium cost, and that is what their salaries are based on. It's been my experience that all the employees are happy with their job, they like their job. We provide them education, the chance to improve themselves, to get certificates, to raise themselves from a journeyman to a assistant wastewater treatment operator, and that's what's going on. We've been doing well. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I didn't do well on the last one, but I'll do better on this one. The employees I know well. I'm a general contractor, and I take a general interest in what they've been doing. And all of them can tell you that I stop by when they're out there working. I ask questions. They show me what they're doing. Our system is in excellent condition. For its age, I think other CSDs can't believe what condition it's in. And it's because of the employees. They enjoy their work. I can tell that because I know them. And I know each one of them. And they enjoy their work. They're into excellence. And there's not much else I can say about that. The Secretary-Treasurer has taken all the classes and improved in everything she can do. And that's where I'll stop. Thank you.
So we're in the home stretch here. And what I'm going to ask you each to do is take a minute to just state why people should vote for you. And that'll be your closing comment. And first we'll do item number 1, and then we'll do the Community Services Board. Let me ask Nita Pinnefrock to start. Got to start somewhere, right?
Why do I want to be on this board? Water is life. It's very important for all of us. We all need to work together with our neighbors, our neighboring cities, and with everybody in the state of California to make sure everybody has clean, drinkable water and that we have a continual source of water. Thank you.
Yeah, I've lived in this valley for 30 years, been a homeowner for 30 years, raised a family of 3 in this valley. This is not just a board position for me. I am dedicated to this valley. I'm a ratepayer in Solvang as well as ID1. I hope, what I'm really hoping is the public can see the difference here. You've heard the quality of answers to the questions. I'll just say this, my knowledge of water, my skill are superior, and I don't mean that in a degrading way. You can see for yourself. I am the superior candidate for Division 2 of Solvang.
Kind of hard to follow up on that one. There are 5 main reasons why I think that, and it's a little repetitious, but it's 5 main reasons why I'm running for the board here. I think the water obviously is critical to our future. I'm committed to the community and I want to see that succeed going forward. I think the current board needs a change. I think you've had people that have been on the board too long. I think we have better skills that we can bring to decision making. I think there are improvements needed in customer service. It is not what it needs to be, and I think that it's pretty safe, and that anybody walking in looking at the customer service level would say it's not correct. Rate transparency, expense controls, particularly legal expenses, are just outrageous. And I think that if you were attending a board meeting, you'd be shocked at the level of legal attacks on other entities and so on. It's just disappointing. I think we need strategic planning, and that means working with others and sitting around the table with them. And finally, governance. The board needs to make sure they're managing the staff. That's all. Thank you.
Kevin Walsh.
Thank you. And thank you all for attending and being here. Very, very grateful for you spending your time to come and listen to the San Ynez Community Services District as well as our board. There are some relationships between us, and it's good to hear both of us in the same place at the same time. We should probably do more of that. There's been some comments about a seat at the table. We have seats at the table. We have seats at the table with the South Coast and the parent district on the water rights where we have common interest. And when we don't have common interest, we tend not to have a seat at the table because it's not needed. And if there's some disagreement between ourselves and the South Coast, it's not for lack of trying. People seem to forget, maybe because they're newcomers and don't know, that it was me and Chris Dahlstrom, me from that end of the mountain and him on this side of the mountain, that put together a lot of the agreements that govern the relationships between the two sides today. And they were effective and working. And if anybody was around that could make it work in today's environment with the other side of the mountain, it would be me. And we have a lot facing us. This is not the time to change horses in the middle of the stream.
Brian Schultz.
Thank you. There's no doubt that my opponent has a great deal of experience in the water business, and I wouldn't take that away from him. But I will take you up on your comments about the apologies to the ladies here in the office. Ladies, I apologize that you have to work for an agency that is despised by so many people here and its customers. I apologize that you have to enforce aggressive collection policies that are set by people like my opponent. I apologize that you have to work under the watchful eye of multiple cameras in your workspace. For what reason, I do not know. I apologize that you repeatedly passed on messages from me to the general manager and they went unanswered. And I had to continually come back for a 6-month period. And I apologize that this is the kind of so-called leadership that you have to report to. And I hope that I could change that in a positive way, that you would be proud of, and that you would be working for an agency that you would be proud of, and that people would be happy when they came in and spoke to you people. And I know that you've spoken to my relatives who have come in over some of these issues that I brought up, and you have all been very kind about them, and I know that it's because you are enforcing policies that you are required to enforce. I understand that. And I have no problem with the employees. What I have is problems with the policies and the way the general manager is conducting business. And I know that every organization is a reflection of the leadership. They reflect the leadership. And that's where the problem lies with ID1. Thank you.
Brad Jones, will you close?
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Pleasure to serve you for the past 4 years. I can tell you, it's a learning curve in my first 4 years, and my opponent doesn't have a clue of the legal ramifications that we face. It's, I'm sorry to say, it's huge. I'm sorry our legal bills are so high, but that's where it's at. If we lose our water, we have nothing here. You've lost everything. So, and I have enjoyed the past 4 years being on the board. I've worked with excellent people. The board is great. We cover from all aspects of knowledge and backgrounds. And it, as I said in my bio, it isn't just digging wells and laying pipe. It's a lot more, and it's specifically the legal issues. I'm sorry to say, I came on the board, that was my Don Quixote moment. I was going to cut all of the legal bills. Well, when I learned, oh my gosh, it's just a wall that you hit, and it's California. What they say? 90% of the lawyers in the world are in the United States, and it keeps bundling down California, as most of them. Okay, it's illegal. That's what it's about here. So, and I'll say for Kevin Walsh, without him, we would be sunk. He knows everything, and he knows how to deal with all these other agencies. I can't even count them on two hands, and they all are different. It's very complex. We got a great board. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to Community Services District. And Robert, will you start?
Why you should vote for me? I will bring a change in attitude, an openness, a warmth, and a lot of energy, new energy, fresh energy, new ideas. Not the same old rubber stamp that's been going on for 15, 20 years now. At some point in time, we hit our pinnacles. I hope I haven't hit mine yet, but in any event, I think the board needs to change to be fresh, to be energized, to be open, and to be respected by the community. It's something that doesn't exist, and that's really painful because it's a service district, and we're not providing the service, which doesn't cost anybody anything except a receptive attitude and a positive attitude. That doesn't exist there from what I've observed and documented and investigated. It's truly time for a change.
David Beard.
One of the reasons why I say you should vote for me is if you come to me and ask me a question, if I don't know the answer, I'll find out the answer, and I will answer you. Not cross my arms in a meeting and sit there and say, we will not, or basically ignore you. I won't lie to you. When they were asked if they were looking into building a plant, a treatment plant, they absolutely denied it, and it's on tape. I will be honest with you.
David Seymour.
Why should you vote for me? For 14 years, yes, I've been here a while. I've dedicated a lot of time into serving the community. I've also expanded that dedication. I was elected this year to LAFCO board as a commissioner. And I really sought that because I didn't like the disconnect between LAFCO and any of the CSDs, and there was no one in the valley that was a part of that board. So I ran and I won, and so there again, I put more energy to understanding and bringing a new era to this valley. I love the valley, and I hope that you vote for me. Thank you.
David Higgins.
Yes, I've been on the board for 21 years. Prior to that, I was with the Santa Barbara County Fire Department. I have a total of 36 years in the fire service, and like I say, 21 years on the St. Ynez Community Services District Board. And getting a sewer line put underneath Highway 246 that we can begin. In fact, we have begun that process, seeking an engineering study to find out what it's going to cost. As far as outreach to the public, in the late 2000s, we put out a paper called the Waste Paper. It was on a green piece of paper. It outlined the things we were doing in this district. It talked about ways you could save on your sewer bill, going to low-flow toilets. But we found out by doing a survey that it was ending up in the waste paper basket. Nobody was really paying much attention to it. Did I go over?
Oh,
Just for,
I had to use the bell.
why don't you wind up at the count of 10?
I apologize. You've been here a long time. The one thing I do want to say in the quick 10 seconds, I have been on the board since '97. This is the first time we've had people run. I have sat in board meetings in the summertime, and when there are people in the audience say, run for the board. We need people on the board. Nobody ever ran. When I signed up for this election, there was only two people, there was only two names on the list, myself and David Seymour. I'm asking for your vote. I will continue to work towards saving you money every way we can.
So when I was appointed to the Planning Commission, my biggest fear was that I would do what I do a lot at my office now, and then I would fall asleep in the middle of a meeting on camera. And I was kind of afraid of the same thing tonight. I'd come here and we'd go on for hours, and I'd fall asleep because it's so late. And I have not fallen asleep. I'm nowhere near falling asleep. My blood pressure's up. This has been very exciting. I want to thank the We Watch people for organizing this thing. Best entertainment you'll see this year. And I think no one can go home and claim, oh, I can't tell the difference between the candidates. You've got some strong opinions here. And I want to thank all the candidates. It takes a real effort to come here tonight and be vulnerable and lay yourselves open and give us all this information that's really helpful. And I think, now that I'm in public service myself, I think people that are willing to do that, they make our system work. So I thank the folks that have been there for the commitment they've already served, and for those who want to serve, I thank you as well. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Good night.